Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Shu, and today I'll be presenting the Microbiology 580 General Parasitology interview assignment. So this assignment will have an interviewee, the person we each of us interviewed, to talk about a specific animal or vector species that can be related to parasites. And this presentation focuses on mosquitoes. And then two mosquito-focused species will be introduced before three parasites that the mosquitoes can serve as vectors for will be discussed, followed by other possible pathogens, and then preventative measures will be touched upon before that will conclude the presentation itself. So for this assignment, I interviewed Stephanie Ness. She is a faculty research assistant in the Veterinary Biomedical Science Department of Dryden Hall here at Oregon State University. She has a background in zoology, so has worked very closely with mosquitoes, dogs, and many pathogenic organisms themselves. So a lot of this presentation today has been directed by what she has been able to inform me of when it comes to mosquitoes and what kind of research I should do for this presentation, what I should look into as parasites, as well as other possible pathogens. So mosquitoes at a glance have four life stages. They start off, we can use this diagram to look at their life cycle. They start off as eggs in a fresh body of water deposited by the adults before they hatch and grow into larvae. Those larvae mature then into pupae, who float at the surface of a body of water and emerge. And emerging from those pupae are adult mosquitoes, who then mate and suck blood in the process. That's the main step that can be rather detrimental to other organisms before the adults deposit eggs and the life cycle is complete. Interestingly enough, the mosquitoes don't really require a large body of water to propagate the eggs. They only really need possibly a cup-sized body of water, possibly a little more, to have a safe place to deposit their eggs and have the larvae hatch and grow. Mosquitoes themselves are not parasites. They are considered as micropredators, but because they are capable of, and actually frankly do, transmit so many other parasites, this presentation will focus on them. So only the females suck blood and the males do not, so that's why the females are the vectors. Mosquitoes are able to use infrared sight to find their hosts, which is why warm-bodied mammals are very commonly preyed upon compared to, say, reptiles. The specific prey species differs among mosquitoes, which is why different mosquitoes can transmit different types of organisms and or parasitic organisms and pathogens. So that will come into play when we discuss different types of parasites that mosquitoes transmit a little later. And interestingly enough, the allergen that is found in mosquito saliva is actually what causes the inflammation and itchiness that we have when we have mosquito bites. There's also a possibility of allergic reactions to the allergen if the person who has been bitten has an allergy or has some kind of unforeseen reaction possibility. So the first focus species of the mosquitoes we're going to look at is the Aedes aegypti mosquito. This is also known as the yellow fever mosquito, and it was originally from the Mediterranean. Today, it's not really found in that part of the world anymore, possibly due to climate change, but this is not exactly clear why it's not as prominent there compared to the rest of the world. And it is one of the most widespread mosquito species globally, and it primarily preys on humans. Though other animals have been preyed upon, most commonly it feeds on humans. The second species we're going to look at today is of mosquitoes, that is the Aedes albopictus. It is the same genus of mosquitoes as Aedes, but is a different species. It is also known as the Asian tiger mosquito and originally from the Southeast Asian tropical rainforest. It feeds on a wide range of animals. So it feeds on humans. It actually prefers to feed on humans, but it can also feed on, say, monkeys, as well as dogs and cats. And therefore it can transmit zoonotic pathogens compared to aegypti because it feeds on animals which could be reservoirs of zoonotic parasites and pathogens. So considering these two mosquitoes, there are three organisms that will be discussed. There are many more, but three eukaryotic parasites that can be transmitted by these mosquitoes. The first one is Diarrhea immitis. This is commonly known as heartworm, and it causes pulmonary diarrhea. Hosts are mostly domestic dogs, wild coyotes, and other canine or canidae organisms and animals, though occasionally cats and perhaps other mammals like humans can get this parasite. It uses primarily Aedes and Culex. Culex is another genus of mosquitoes, but today we'll be focusing on how it uses Aedes instead of Culex. So Diarrhea immitis can cause something called pulmonary diarrhea. Here we have it as a title of this diagram provided by the CDC. Nodule formation, which is when essentially a cyst-like growth in the heart can occur, but this is not usually the case for Diarrhea immitis. It is usually a different type of heartworm. We're not going to discuss that today. Though Diarrhea immitis can cause it, but it's a rare and very uncommon instance. Vague symptoms are associated with Diarrhea immitis because it can differ by dog, but the common one is eosinophilia, which is high amounts of eosinophil, white blood cells in the bloodstream. It is diagnosed with X-ray images of coin lesions found within the chest cavity. There's no serological molecular method for Diarrhea diagnosis in the United States for humans, but it is extremely rare for humans to get this, though it can occur. And the second parasitic species that will be observed today is a parasite known as Wuchereria bancrofti. It causes a disease known as elephantiasis, and here in the picture we have a male on the left and a female on the right. It's a very small parasite. This is also a filario nematode. So Diarrhea immitis is a roundworm. We just talked about that. It is also a nematode, but it's called a roundworm, while this one is called a filario nematode. It is a human parasite. It can occur in animals, but it is considered that there's no epidemiological impact that is great enough in animals to be considered or to consider Wuchereria bancrofti to be an animal or zoonotic pathogen. It just uses the animals as reservoirs. It causes a disease called lymphatic filariasis, and it's the blockage of the lymphatic system that is very detrimental. The prognosis for this disease and pretty much every single other disease that is caused by parasites is good if it is diagnosed early. So here we have another diagram from the CDC. There's the mosquitoes here that are responsible for transmitting this parasite between humans. Lymphatic filariasis is a chronic inflammatory disease, which means that it progresses and it gets worse as it continues. Antibody detection is available in the United States for this disease, but it is not found in the United States anymore because limitation efforts have been successful in limiting this disease to very small portions of where it used to be prominent. So sub-Saharan Africa, subtropical Southeast Asia, or tropical Southeast Asia, as well as Madagascar, are where this parasite is found. The recommended treatment is diethylcarbamazine citrate by the CDC. Here, using this diagram, we can see how the worm will migrate after it has managed to infect the human body into the lower extremities, where it will then settle within a part of the lymphatic system. And it actually blocks the lymphatic system from properly draining itself, which is why lymph tends to collect in your lymphatic system, and that can cause swelling of the lower limbs as well as perhaps the surrounding area, and it causes very painful and very grotesque results in the human body, which is why it is best to treat it early with medication. The third eukaryotic parasite we're going to look at today is Plasmodium subspecies. So just in case anybody doesn't know, SPP here, it actually means something in Latin. It escapes me at the moment, but it essentially means Plasmodium and the species that are associated with this genus. Plasmodium is also known as malaria, and they are blood parasites. And malaria is formerly endemic to North America, but preventative measures have been successful in stopping this kind of transmission. Diagnosis can be difficult because it attacks the red blood cells in the human body, and then that depletes the nutrition that can be delivered to different parts of the body. So it depends really on the instance of how many red blood cells are being affected and which organs in your body will be affected first. But common symptoms include chills, fever, anemia. That's a very common one, anemia, because it actually affects the red blood cells. Another one is diarrhea, vomiting, hyperglycemia, and neurologic changes. So perhaps mood shifts because there might not be enough oxygen or nutrients reaching the brain, which can then influence if you are able to have normal brain activity. Early treatment is paramount. As always, early treatment and early diagnosis is extremely crucial. So using this diagram again, or a diagram again from the CDC, we see that this section of the Plasmodium life cycle, because it uses two hosts like many of the other eukaryotic parasites. It uses the mosquito here before it is able to invade the human body and attack the red blood cells, and then it is again transmitted to a mosquito, and the cycle is complete. The CDC recommends a wide array of medications, so chloroquine, doxycycline, mefloquine, and primaquine are a few of them, but depends on which organs are being affected, as well as how far along the infection itself has been, or how far along the infection itself has progressed. History of exposure. So this is a very important thing to know, which is if you travel to any region of the world where these parasites may or may not be present, it is best to indicate that to your medical care provider if you are presenting with symptoms that are very odd, such as you get back from travel and then you're feeling ill. You should tell your medical care practitioner that you've been to a part of the world and the medical or where you've been if it's after travel, and they'll be able to assess perhaps maybe you've been exposed to these dangerous and deadly parasites. So now we move out of the world of eukaryotic organisms and move into viruses. So one other pathogen that can be transmitted is chikungunya, which is a single-strand RNA virus. It is transmitted by the Aedes genus of mosquitoes. It is present in tropical and subtropical regions. And here we have this very, very detailed diagram of the virus itself. Symptoms of fever and joint pain are common. So fever in of itself is not a symptom that demarcates any kind of disease from another, but joint pain is a very rare one. So this is something to look out for. There's no specific antiviral treatment for this disease, but there are preventative measures that will be discussed a little later. Another virus is Zika virus. So there's not been a lot of cases reported in the United States by the CDC. There was an outbreak in 2016 and of local cases, but ever since then it has gone down, thankfully. And most other cases that have been present throughout the years are from people who have traveled to regions that have this deadly disease. Here we have a picture or two, or actually 4 pictures of the Zika virus itself. So why Zika virus is so dangerous is because pregnancy during Zika virus infection can be very detrimental, not just to the body itself, but also to the fetus that's developing. So Zika can actually be transplacental and cause something called congenital Zika syndrome in the fetus that is developing. And some of the symptoms that are associated with congenital Zika syndrome are macrocephaly, brain development issues, and contractures. And the most dangerous one here is probably macrocephaly, which is defined as underdeveloped cranial growth. And it is when, as we see in this diagram, this would be a normal cranial size, and this is perhaps mild microcephaly, and this is severe microcephaly. So the brain itself is not developing, and then that can cause issues down the road. And what's also very scary is that microcephaly can, it might not look like this at the beginning when the fetus is born, but it can actually develop later in life due to Zika. Now, that has been a wide range of very scary and dangerous pathogens, but there are preventative measures available. One of them would be lemongrass. And this is something that Stephanie pointed out to me very particularly, which is lemongrass is proven to be the strongest, as of the moment, strongest repellent of mosquitoes. So perhaps you can get a bottle of the essential oil. Here we have a picture of lemongrass itself that was provided by this laboratory. You can perhaps get a bottle of essential oil and perhaps put it on your clothes or on a handkerchief and put that handkerchief in your shirt pocket so to repel mosquitoes. Another method would be wearing clothes that cover the arms, shoulders, neck, ankles. It is noted though by Stephanie that depending on the kinds of clothes you wear, if it's very thin and very loose, mosquitoes can get through the cloth, like they can land on your shirt and they can still penetrate your skin by just sticking their proboscis through holes in the garment. So depends on the clothing, but perhaps in tandem with the lemongrass essential oil, it can prevent mosquito bites. Also, sleeping under a mosquito net at night would be advised because mosquitoes are very active during the evening and night times, and you are not, and you can get very easily bitten by them. So that's a great measure to consider. Not traveling to that part of the world would also be a great idea, but in this case, if you have to travel there, those measures can be applied. So concluding this presentation, mosquitoes are a very potent vector of a wide array of pathogens and parasites and organisms, but there are preventative measures that can be taken. And here we have these 2 images, how this is a zoonotic state, the zoonotic cycle, and then it can be transmitted to humans and then perhaps back again. And here we have another diagram showing that mosquitoes can transmit a lot of things to just humans, or they can also transmit viruses in this case, and they can also distribute bacterial or perhaps viral or perhaps eukaryotic parasites and pathogens. But preventative measures are available, and again, it might sound like a broken record, but it is always a good idea to perhaps tell a medical care provider if you have traveled to a part of the world where a virus is present. It is a very, very, very smart thing to do. And again, As I mentioned earlier, there are preventative measures like the lemongrass oil or essential oil. There's also the idea of wearing clothes that cover the arms and legs and torso and neck. And there's also finally the idea of sleeping under a mosquito net. Here we have the first page of references, and here we have the second page. And that concludes this presentation. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. It is greatly appreciated.